Hey, what's up, everyone? Welcome to a brand new episode of a little show I like to call IndieMOODment here on eCAV Radio. So before we get started talking about what is going on today's show, I want to know, how was the weekend? Did you guys have a good weekend? I had a pretty good weekend. I actually had a really good weekend. It was really warm outside, so that is baller. Got to go downtown, checked out a couple of events, and had a lot of fun. I definitely had a lot of fun, and now we are back into the work week, back into the school week, and that's a bummer, but no need to worry. I got your back. On today's show, I had the pleasure of sitting down and chatting with Jody Hendrix. Jody wears many hats in the music industry, as you'll hear during the interview today, and amongst the many things that Jody does, one of his main jobs is running a local indie record label called Little Class Records. And I thought it'd be really fitting to start the show off with the artist that essentially helped found Little Class Records, local blues and roots legend Beale. We're going to go ahead now and check out his song Long Hard Road, taken from his 2014 release Hard Time. When the song is done, we'll jump right into my conversation with Mr. Jody Hendrix. You're tuned into IndieMOODment here on eCAV Radio.
It's a long, hard road that I've been on. I'm daily dancing with the devil, and my life stories are in my songs. And if I turned left or I turned right, I was always wrong, and I never found a place where I belong. I'm like a stray dog that does not have a home. I'm never running with the pack, always alone. When it come to wearing a collar, you can bet your bottom dollar that that is something Wild Bill's never done. But losing things is something I do well. The only time I've been successful's when I fail. I can get lost in a crowd. You can find me where the music's loud. What I call heaven, most folks would call hell. I'll say welcome to the world of Billy Bill, where it's hard luck, hard times, hard-hearted women. It's hard drugs and hard liquor. It's a hard world where I've been living. Hard knocks, I've had a few, and it's between a hard spot and a rock I get my point of view. If you could only walk a few miles in my shoes, I'm just real sure you'd walk away with the blues. The best advice I ever got was the advice I never used. But now I know what Mama meant when she said no news is good news. And if you want to win the bet, then bet I'll lose. Because it's hard luck, hard times, hard-hearted women. It's hard drugs and hard liquor. It's a hard world where I've been living. Hard knocks, I've had my share. And it's not that hard to figure out just how I got here. On this long, hard road that I've been on.
Okay, well, I have a special guest in the studio with me today, Mr. Jody Hendrix from Little Class Records. Well, actually, you have quite an impressive bio, so I'm not going to steal your thunder here. But tell the people, a little bit about yourself.
Well, I am in Kansas City, born and bred, and lifetime musician hobbyist, and that turned eventually into full-time music entrepreneur. So we run Little Class Records, which is a local record label, and we have probably about 30% local roster, and the rest acts that we've picked up from around the nation. In that, Little Class Records also does all of the talent buying for the Westport Saloon. And that's really an audition stage for us as far as the record label goes. The record label and the saloon together jointly created Westport Roots Festival, and we're working on our third year for May 2016. So
That's pretty awesome.
yeah, that's fun.
Definitely. So being a musician, being a booker, now owning a record label, is that a natural progression for you? Did you kind of start off thinking I'm going to do this eventually, or did it just kind of happen?
Well, I knew that when I got out of the military that, I had a professional career that I had to follow and a hobby that I had to follow. And hobby-wise, it was a natural progression, but I didn't plan on any of it, if that makes sense. Really what it started off as a band in probably 2007, we got sick and tired of the high cost of commercial recording studios. Our first album was done in one of those, and it turned out about 90% of what we actually liked, and so we bought our own equipment. We bought the $199.99 Acme mail order do-it-yourself recording operation, and we went to work.
Okay, so what we're going to do now is take a quick break, but don't go anywhere. I promise the break will be really short, and when we get back, we'll jump right into chatting it up with Mr. Jody Hendrix. You tuned into IndieMOODment here on eCAV Radio. Welcome back to IndieMOODment here on eCAV Radio. If you're just tuning in, thank you so much for joining me today. You are just in time. You're just in time because I have a fantastic guest on the show today, Mr. Jody Hendrix. And before the break, he was starting to explain how his record label, Little Class Records, got started. The Cliff Notes version, the Cliff Notes, is that a previous band he was in, they were tired of the high cost of commercial recording studios, so they decided to take things into their own hands and bought some gear.
After, doing a handful of records for friends for free or for next to nothing, we found a reason to create a record label, and that reason was in Beale. And that was probably right around 2010. Billy Beale, he's 65 now. Do the math, carry the one. He was 60-something back then, and, Billy had some troubles with the law in the past, and he was preparing to go pay for some of his past sins, and we knew he hadn't had a record in years, and so we were like, man, we got to just do this for this guy before he goes away for a little while. And once we had that record in our hand, we were like, okay, let's print this and let's sell it. Let's throw a party for him, even though he's locked up. Basically, we paid his property taxes for him off of the first record, the release and stuff like that, the release party, and made his life a little bit more comfortable while he was away. Kept money on the books for him and whatnot. But once we had that record, we needed a way to release it. And so obviously we were smart enough to know that you don't go shopping record labels and just, so we just DIY, do it yourself. And so that's what we did. And I guess to continue the story, eventually my professional career path didn't turn out the way I wanted it to, and music was always there. I was bartending, trying to make $1 and pushing a career in music at the same time, which translated into being a talent buyer for different venues. And so once I found a home in the Westport Saloon, mainly because it was a new bar in the hip part of town with the same exact musical taste that I had. So it was a marriage made in heaven, really.
Yeah.
And as soon as we had that, we kind of just hit the ground running because some office space opened up next to it, and kind of the rest is still being written, I guess.
What was the profession that you were trying to go after that didn't work out?
Well, when I was in the military, I was military police. I got out and got a degree in criminal justice with an emphasis in human services. So I was following the social services career path. I did some time as a substance abuse counselor in the prisons. I worked with children who were in residential treatment facilities for criminal and behavioral type stuff. And kind of got taxing, and it wasn't good for me. And my life kind of went to hell in a handbasket in other areas. And My friends playing music in the bars never left. And so that's kind of eventually just crossed over to the dark side and said I wasn't ever going to work for the man again. So
Yeah. So musicians, they're definitely an interesting breed
absolutely.
of personality. Has your background helped you communicate with them and, kind of try to help them get things done?
It's funny that you would mention that because I have a little inside joke. I came out of the military with a little bit of a hypervigilance PTSD type thing, and working in social services, you spend a lot of time being very empathetic, and I realized that it was unhealthy for me to practice empathy for a living. 60 hours a week and worrying about somebody else's problems is pretty hardcore.
Sure.
So the joke is that I got out of social services in order to pursue work in the music industry, and now I'm back in social services. Should have been not-for-profit.
Yeah. So what was it about Billy Beale that really caught your attention, that made you guys want to go the extra mile and help him out?
The authenticity, the nature of music community, really. I mean, we did that first album for him for absolutely free. I mean, we didn't charge him anything. We just knew that we were documenting something important. He's an unsung hero, underground kind of legend in the area, and it was just really to pay homage more than anything.
It's really cool.
Yeah.
First off, explain to me what roots music is, and then tell me a little bit why you're so drawn to it, why you're so passionate about it.
Well, roots music can really mean a lot. For me, I think that it encompasses that huge umbrella that covers anything that came from traditional American music. You could go so far as to say, jazz and blues. But for me personally, that means anything country, hillbilly, bluegrass, early blues, early jazz, the stuff that our musical lineage was founded on in America. And, 15 years ago in Kansas City, everybody said rockabilly. Everything was rockabilly this, rockabilly that. Mm-hmm. And in the growth of that, appreciation for the older music, people who were, fans of the rockabilly and stuff also started to incorporate the old country and the old honky-tonk. And now you've got, bluegrass instruments being played by young punk rockers that are writing punk music on with mandolins and banjos and uprights and washboards. And there's very much a strong dialect and authenticity in this region that makes it unique. Most of the people that we work with and that we admire musically, whether we're working with them or not, are all people that came up in this area and are a generation or two from an old man that listened to AM radio, mm-hmm. and they worked in the fields or the factories or whatever it was. So, I always tell people when I'm at the Westport Saloon, I'm there working and I'm not drinking, I'm observing people, and I see these 24, 25-year-old kids singing along to a Conway Twitty song that the band might slip into their set. And I always ask those people, I go, how do you know that? First of all, how old are you?
Yeah.
And second of all, how are you singing this song from 1975? And the answer is always my grandpa.
Oh, wow.
My uncle.
Mm-hmm.
My grandpa's friend, whatever it is. It's always it always links directly back to just kind of the culture of the middle class working American, from the 50s through the 80s. And that has come back around as far as just the musical taste, I think.
It's interesting, and I was curious, the demographic, when I hear roots and I hear all the subgenres that you had mentioned, mm-hmm. I think an older demographic, however, as you just mentioned, that's turning.
Absolutely.
And it's getting more popular. So mm-hmm. how would you compare the roots scene, the actual scene, the people and the community around it, as compared to, let's say, like an indie rock scene or a hip hop scene or an EDM mm-hmm. scene? Are there differences, similarities?
I think the differences, there's a lot of similarities. You have the festival goers and the diehards and the people who would tattoo stuff on their face in the homage of that artist or that band or that culture. But I think what's different, again, is just that history. Mm-hmm. There's a lot of pride in the roots scene because, how long has it been since you've seen a banjo on television?
Yeah.
How long has it been since you've seen an authentic honky-tonk band on television, or on the radio, even worse? But as this scene is starting to grow, corporate entities are starting to take notice, and you'll see that in some of the names that are coming out, in the last CMA awards and stuff like that. Chris Stapleton, Sturgill Simpson, great authentic music, right? Well, the pendulum is starting to swing back traditional, and even though we've been trying to make it a thing for 10 plus years, me personally, I think we succeeded because now it's starting to bleed over back into the spotlight. And so we just hope to kind of grab a hold of some of that and document it along the way and help the great ones get where they need to go.
So when you were playing in bands, did you primarily play root style of music?
We did cowpunk. It was like
cowpunk.
Yeah. It was. Country music, lyricism, subjects, and progressions set to the Ramones, Misfits era rock and roll. We were very much in tune with bands like the Hickoids and Skid Roper, Mojo Nixon. It was rowdy rock and roll is really what it boiled down to. But I have a pompadour and cuff my pants, so automatically got accepted into all of the rockabilly, like rockabilly and psychobilly genres and cliques. But I just think it was the authenticity of the country feel that made people relate with it and kind of allowed to be in that scene. We were paired all the time with, bands we shouldn't have been paired with simply because we had that little bit of a country feel.
Right. Yeah. So Little Class Records, what I thought was very interesting about what you guys did is there was a certain point, and I want you to explain to me what that point was, where you guys went out and you started getting interest and you actually got an angel investor to help you guys grow the label. Is that accurate?
Not quite accurate.
Okay.
Almost there. Basically, what that is about, kind of what you're referring to is BetaBlocks. BetaBlocks is a business incubator in Kansas City. And if you don't know what a business incubator is, the short version is it's a group of people who help guide and create good working startups. And so we went through the selection process. I had to stand in front of a panel and present my company and be grilled and all that. And essentially what it is we partner with BetaBlocks by giving them 5% of our company.
Okay.
In return, we get access to all of their resources. There's a boot camp, there's weekly lectures, there's a mentor process, and basically you're part of a good guy club. Your peers in these classrooms and in these events that you attend are other entrepreneurs, and that means they're either just like you or they're people who are beyond where you are, and now they're starting to do the investing and stuff like that. So with BetaBlocks, they prepare you for what they call a demonstration day. And demonstration day is when you've been deemed ready. That can be any amount of time, and there's a giant conference and thousands of angel investors come in and they look at the schedule and they go listen to the presentations they want to listen to. So once you get up there, you pitch, and then you just wait for the people to come knocking, Okay. And so as of right now, no, we're 100% bootstrap. We pay our rent every month, and there isn't really a whole lot after that, because we're in a time of transition in the music industry,
right.
And so BetaBlocks brought us on because they saw what we were doing, and they know that it's a broken music industry right now, and because of BetaBlocks, we're on the fast track to some technical solutions to help bridge the gap between the haves and the have-nots in the new music industry.
So did you guys reach out to BetaBlocks, or did they reach out to you?
Yeah, we applied.
Okay.
Well, I guess if you think about it, they reached out to us, and because they were sponsoring ads on Facebook, to entrepreneurs. And so I saw it. I saw, what the heck, why not? I read a little bit about it, applied, and honestly, I'd forgotten that I applied when I got the message saying that they were interested in us. So.
Are there a lot of other labels or entertainment companies that they help incubate?
We're the only record label. I believe that Not a Planet, local Kansas City band, is a BetaBlocks band, and I think that was their first crack at taking on a music act. Mm-hmm. And other than a digital company who has similar goals as us, there's no other music entity within BetaBlocks.
I would assume that they don't have any creative control. I know that you
No.
said they 5%, but that's just
Yeah, that's once you're scalable.
Okay.
Once you franchise or you sell, or you become extremely rich, they'll want their 5%. But really, it's your mentors have an ownership in the company, and so they have an ownership in you, and so it's within their best interest to help you succeed, whether that means helping you rub the right elbows or teaching you the right skills, or just introducing you to the right people, whatever it might be.
Have you been to one of those big conferences yet where you actually pitch?
Not yet.
Okay.
Not yet.
Walk me through how the actual pitch to BetaBlocks went.
Oh, how the pitch to BetaBlocks?
Yeah.
Have you ever seen Shark Tank? It was almost exactly like Shark Tank.
Wow.
Except that there were about 20 people in the room.
Wow.
And I didn't know. I mean, you walk in there and you think these are all powerful millionaires, but really about 80% of them were people just like me who had been in the program for a little while. And so now in turn, I get to go to those things and sit and intimidate entrepreneurs from across the table. But so, I mean, really that's what it was. You go in and they basically want to know if you're, if you've got a business that can possibly make money, is it scalable, and are you willing to listen to reason when you're told that, well, maybe that's not how you should do it, So, but yeah, creative control, no, they're just like awesome big brothers to have on your side in the fight on the playground.
Absolutely. Yeah, I mean, it's all about building your team, even as a musician and as an independent record label.
Yeah, absolutely. And really the connections and the people that I've met through BetaBlocks have been very valuable for us. So.
It was interesting earlier when you mentioned that you use the Westport Saloon kind of as a screening for bands that you're interested in bringing on the label. Is that just from seeing how they perform live, how they deal with the whole live performance situation, like dealing with a booker, all of the above?
Yeah, it's all of the above, really. From the first time I open an email, it's like, if I'm going to book you, chances are I'd be interested in having you on the label. You get on the stage. What's your live show like? How do you interact with the patrons, the staff? Do you treat the staff well? We have sleeping quarters at the Little Class Records for the traveling artists. Do you clean up when you're done? Are you selling merch at your show? How's your merch operation? Are you getting too drunk to play? Are you getting too drunk to sell merch? Are you getting too drunk to be nice to people? These are all things that we can observe. And beyond that, do we love the music? Because just because you love the music doesn't mean you should jump in and throw everything into a project. Because as we've learned, trial and error, it's all about having a good business plan more than anything for us. I mean, you got to have good music, but without a solid operation, we're taking a risk putting any time or effort into a band. So.
Okay, and with that, let's take a quick break. But when we get back, we're going to hear some more tunes from a few artists on Little Class Records and continue our discussion with Jody Hendrix. You tuned into IndieMOODment on eCAV Radio. Welcome back to IndieMOODment on eCAV Radio. Before we continue chatting it up today with my special guest, Mr. Jody Hendrix, how about we check out some really great tracks from a couple of artists on his local record label, Little Class Records. First up, AJ Gaither, OMB, with his song Natural Habitat. Now, this particular track that I'm going to play here was recorded live at the Westport Saloon, so you're going to get a glimpse of how talented this guy is as a musician. It's a live setting, no studio magic here. We'll then roll into Julian Davis's song, Mr. Rain, Lock Your Door song, and after that track is done, we'll go ahead and jump right back into the interview.
Drink my bird from Kentucky, drink my water from the tap, and I can live on that highway like it's my natural habitat. I got me a woman in Kansas City, got me a woman in Arkansas. Well, I got me a woman in Kansas City. Got me a woman in Arkansas. Westport, I tell you what, well, I'm gonna try and rule them all. Don't you ask me no question, and I won't tell you no lie. Said, don't you ask me no question, I won't tell you no lie. When I stay out my business, girl, and well, I don't need no alibi. I drink my bourbon from Kentucky, drink my water from the town. Well, I drink my bourbon from Kentucky, drink my water from the town. I can live out on that highway like it's my natural habit.
From on high and ruining all and more. He'll come up out of nowhere, blue skies or black. You'll see him little running scared, other his crazy laugh. Some days he will come down from that storm. Rain will come a little closer, so lock your doors. Some days he will come down from that storm. Rain will come a little closer, so lock. Oh, oh, so lock your doors.
So you guys have a really, really big roster for an independent label from my perspective. Sure. How many active, you have like, what, 15 or 16?
You know, a lot of, that's kind of a, I don't know, it's a hard question to ask because several of the acts that we have on our roster were part of the initial round of friends that we were recording.
Okay.
You know, so there's a lot of loosely defined relationships between us and the acts that we kind of launched with. But operationally, like we probably have about 12 to 15 that are like either 100% active out on the road, working hard, 150 plus days a year, or they're local heroes that play 2 shows a month that will always put out a record with us because we have a good relationship. So
So does Little Class just put out records, or do you guys have your hands in everything? Help the bands book, help them build their social media, help them with their presence.
Well, putting out the record is the first and foremost because that's what we started doing. As we grow and as we learn more about SEO and social media, there's certain acts that we help with that. There's certain acts that we just give advice to. Booking, I'm not a booking agent as far as booking tours, but I know everybody, so I'm a friend in the booking industry.
Sure, that helps.
Yeah, so can I book you a 6-day tour? Yes. Do I want to? No. I would rather teach you to do it. I would rather give you the tools and give you the contacts because, I always say book yourself. At one point, you're going to need a booking agent if you get to the point where you're doing 200 dates a year and you're making $500 or more a show. Because if you're not doing that, no booking agent's going to have any real desire to put time and effort for the 45 emails it takes to get from cradle to grave to book a show.
Right.
At 10%, that's $50, So I tell my artists to do it yourself because the bartenders who book the shows or the club owners who book the shows or the promoters, they want that relationship with the artist, And then that's how you make friends and that's how you grow a scene and a network. And that's how you might have a job once you realize your music isn't that good. Also,
Right.
because that's what happened to me.
Yeah.
I went out and we booked every tour we did. And because of those skills I learned, I was able to translate that into, something that was marketable. So
should bands be actively looking for booking agents, or it sounds like they're going to be coming to them once they start?
Well, there's a middle tier missing in the booking industry right now. Your bands that need a booking agent, the booking agent doesn't have to put in a lot of effort because they're so popular that people contact them.
Sure.
Okay, the just out of your hometown bar and into the neighboring cities level, there's nobody to do that for you. You have to do it yourself. And so it's my theory that if we all do it ourselves, that in 15 years we will have that missing tier for that middle booking industry. Somebody to cater to who has the contacts and the networks to be able to fill those 200 capacity bars where bands are going to make $200 to $400 on a Friday and Saturday night, because that's what you're going to make when you go out there and you do it for the first time, if you're lucky.
Right.
That's if you are really awesome and people really, really like you and you treat everybody right. You might make $400 on a Saturday night. Most of the time you're going to go out there and you're going to get door splits with 3 or 4, other bands, some touring, some local, and you might walk with $80 in your pocket on a Saturday night.
Yeah.
So 10% of $80 is $8. It's not a lot of money for a booking agent to carry that responsibility.
Mm-hmm. So you guys run at Little Clash. You guys do some blogging. I'm assuming it's majority of you that's doing all that blogging.
Yes.
And you had a really, really nice blog post that we just talked about. Another blog post that you wrote was 11 Reasons Why Kansas City is the next music mecca. And you touch on the different sides of the venues that the city has, the different festivals like Roots Festival, middle of the Math Fest, center of the City Fest, and the music-focused organizations, Midwest Music Foundation, just, to name one of them. Right. Where do you see the city going in the next 5 to 10 years?
5 to 10 years? I think in 10 years we're going to be all the rage of what Austin was in the late 90s. And then I think it's going to do exactly what happened to Austin and
get
Nashville.
Overloaded.
Yeah, well, I mean, it's just the trend. It's what happens. You're artsy, you're cool. Everybody loves it because you're artsy and you're cool. So people start moving there. People start talking about it. You get interviews on the radio. People start selling, property at ridiculous prices.
Yeah.
Lofts get built. Chipotles get moved in. And then next thing you know, the artists that made the area cool can't afford to live there anymore. And so I think that's probably the 20-year 25-year plan for Kansas City, unless our government steps in and does something different and looks at the mistakes of Austin to try to prevent that somehow. Right now, people are buzzing about Kansas City because of the low cost of living. You can come to Kansas City, work a Joe job, bartending, delivering papers, whatever, and still tour on the weekends. Still develop your music, push your art, whatever your art is, and be able to afford to sustain life because of the cost of living here. So as long as that doesn't change, we could be a music mecca for a long time to come. But gentrification kills anything artsy. It does every time.
It does. It absolutely does.
Yeah.
So what inspired you to write that blog post? I mean, obviously there's all those topics that you talked about. Well, was it just you had seen and being contacted by more and more bands to come and play Kansas City, and you're like, wow, this is, I'm seeing it materialize?
Well, honestly, I wasn't inspired to blog until BetaBlocks taught me about blogging.
Oh, okay.
I mean, we're not going to hire a publicist because Google is your publicist. I mean, really, it's all about content. It's all about information on the internet. What do I want people to search to find our music?
Sure.
And that comes in blogs. But, when you have that platform, address something important, address something informative, and, give something to people for nothing, for free, and create that relationship with them,
You mentioned a little bit earlier when you guys had the CD, Billy Beale CD that essentially started Little Class Records. And,
Right.
And you had mentioned, well, we're not going to go shop this to labels, because you had, I think at that time, a knowledge that not a lot of artists these days have. When is the right time for artists to reach out to labels? Or is it the same thing as we talked about with booking agents, that if they're popular enough, the labels will come to them and they'll have more clout to negotiate a better contract?
Well, to me, it depends on what world you're living in. I mean, are you living in the world where you think that you have to spend $12,000 on a record and travel to an exotic city to record your record with exotic players, or do you want to put out an authentic piece of music that is your own and do it yourself and get a product out there that isn't going to cost you an arm and a leg? Do you think that you're one magical handshake and business card exchange away from superstardom? If you think that, then by all means go hunt for a record label, and also find me the pot of gold while you're out there. Because,
And the leprechaun.
yeah, because we all need that also. So I guess to bring it back around the block, look for a label if that label is working smart in the new music industry. I mean, what Little Class Records is doing from a record label standpoint is far removed from what it meant to be a record label 10, 15 years ago. We don't we don't ask for publishing rights. We don't hold people to unreasonable contracts. It's all very it's a co-op. It's a 50-50 split. It's a wholesaler retailer like relationship, So I don't know. I mean, you're never going to find a record label that is, no matter how awesome you are, you're never going to find a record label or a manager just to take you to the top. It's not going to happen. Those days are over. The pop music industry doesn't have a clue as to what is relevant and what people are listening to. Their numbers are falling. We're on the rise. I say we, the independent music circuit is on the rise, and it's the internet, I think, single-handedly destroyed and created, destroyed the old music industry and created the new industry. Once we get some laws fixed when it comes to proper royalty for digital streaming, we'll have an even playing field. But the internet gave people options, and they didn't have to look to the suits with the record labels for what music to listen to next. The music to listen to next was at your own, click. What wormhole do you get caught in on YouTube and find some stuff that you really like? You're just a few seconds away from uncharted territory all the time. So the internet also brought us together as a community. Because of the internet, we can all band together. Everybody that likes gypsy bluegrass, squatter punk all 80 of you in the world can be in one little Facebook room and all interact, And it's a way, it's like that. I mean, you look at Dale Watson in Austin, Texas with Ameripolitan. Power of the internet has brought that anti-pop country movement together, and it's operated on its own without the support of a giant base of money, that had influence in what's on the radio. So,
all right, guys, well, let's go ahead and take another break. But again, this break will be real short. And when we get back, we'll wrap things up with my special guest today, Mr. Jody Hendrix, and check out another artist on Little Class Records roster. You tuned into IndieMOODment on eCAV Radio. Welcome back to IndieMOODment on eCAV Radio. Let's go ahead and jump into the final portion of the interview I did with my special guest today, Mr. Jody Hendrix of Little Class Records. So can you talk about the Roots Festival for 2016?
Yeah, absolutely.
Let us know about it. What's going on?
Well, each year we've evolved a little bit, and this year we're bringing it in a little closer. Last year we were spread out to Riot Room and Harling's upstairs. With, the closing of Harling's, we've just decided we're going to keep it all right there on that little block where we're at. We're going to be at Ernie Biggs, Buzzard Beach, Westport Saloon, Firefly, and then we're in mid-negotiation for where the 2 outdoor stages will be, but it'll probably be in one of those 2 parking lot spaces or the horseshoe in front of California's.
Okay.
Or we might even block off the street. We haven't quite decided yet. We're waiting on some I's to be dotted and T's to be crossed. But musically speaking, we're bringing in some cool stuff. I mean, we really are. Some of our bigger names, Sarah Gail Meach out of Nashville.
Nice.
She's the queen of the honky-tonk right now. Good traditional, like late 70s sounding outlaw country. And she's easy on the eyes, neck tattoos, knuckle tattoos, and sassy and very talented. We're bringing in, on the honky-tonk side of things, we're bringing in legendary songwriter Billy Don Burns. He's had many songs, that have been taken by Paycheck or Merle Haggard and recorded. He's just constantly been a staple. Jack Grelly out of St. Louis on the honky-tonk side, he'll be there. Great, just traditional country music. He was in our room this last Saturday night at the Westport Saloon. On the, the more aggressive side of things, we're bringing in the Hickoids. They're 1980s cowpunk, like just cult figures from Austin, Texas. We're bringing in Elvis Hitler. They were one of the original 80s psychobilly bands that got some MTV play when that kind of thing was still possible.
And they have a really cool name.
Yeah. Which actually they ended up changing their name. They only did 2 albums under the name Elvis Hitler because, as you can imagine, it didn't fly very well.
Right.
While we're bringing in some, throwback stuff from the 80s, we're also bringing in, on a national level, we're bringing back some locals that will have some reunion shows. Boot Hill, I don't know if you're familiar with Boot Hill. They were late 90s, early aughts cowpunk band that had some traction, still all local personalities, so they'll be doing their first show in 10 years.
That's exciting.
The Bindle Stiffs, they were mid-90s. Tom Petty, Southern rock type stuff. Pendergast will be making an appearance. So we got some cool things there. And of course we have, all of the staples like the Calamity Cubes and Sean James and the Shapeshifters. I don't know if you know who those guys are. Sean James and the Shapeshifters truly melding roots music like it hasn't been meshed before. They're taking metal and soul and mixing it with banjos and fiddles, and they're doing it well. Usually when people talk about mixing things with like Southern music, you kind of cringe because you think of Kid Rock or whoever. They won some big contest with Converse and metalsucks.net, and they're on the rise, man. They're good stuff. They've been at our festival every year. So Westport Roots Festival, we're going 6 stages, and it should be a good time.
And is that in April or May?
May 28th.
May 28th.
This year we're having a pre-party, and we'll have Dale Watson at the pre-party, which is a big thing. And post-party we'll have Mountain Sprout.
Nice.
So,
where can people find out more about the festival?
WestportRoots.com.
Okay.
Yeah.
It's easy enough.
Yeah.
And then where can people find out more about Little Class Records?
LittleClassRecords.com.
You're just on it with the branding.
Yep.
Do you want to give any shout-outs before we wrap this up?
Shout-outs. Wow. Really it all boils down to the Westport Saloon.
Yeah.
Without an incredible stage with a bunch of traction and a place for people to have fun and an incredible staff with great food and great whiskey and free shows, like we couldn't be doing any of this.
Very cool. Well, Joey, thank you so much for coming in and chatting with me today.
Yeah, absolutely.
I'd like to give a special thanks to my guest today, Mr. Jody Hendrix. Be sure to check out all the amazing artists on his label, Little Class Records, and go grab your tickets for the Westport Roots Festival. The next time you're in the Westport area, head down to the Saloon. Say what's up to Mr. Hendrix. Okay, we're going to go ahead and wrap the show up today with another Little Class recording artist, Nathan Kalish and the Lastcallers. The song is called Spanish Pipe Dream. I'm your host, AEBeats, signing off.
She was a little head dancer on the road to alcohol. I was just a soldier on the way to Montreal. Where she pressed her chest against it about the time the jukebox rolled. Real shut, gave me a peck on the back of the neck. These are the words she spoke. Blow up the TV, throw away the paper, move to the country, build your home, plant a little garden, eat a lot of peaches, gonna find Jesus on your own. Yeah. Well, I sat there at the table, I acted real naive, 'cause I knew that type of First Lady. She had something up her sleeve. Her dad's danced around the bar, and she did the hoochie-coo. Well, she sang a song all night long, just telling me what to do. Blow up the TV, throw away the paper, move to the country, build you a home, plant a little garden, eat a lot of peaches, gonna find Jesus on your own. Well, now I was young and hungry and about to leave that place. Well, now, just as I was going, she looked me in the face. I said, you must know the answer. She said, no, but I'll give it a try. Into that day we've been living our way. These are the reasons why. Blew up the TV, threw away the paper, moved to the country, built us a home, had a lot of children, fed them all peaches. They all found Jesus on their own.